Welcome to episode 3, Created by Design. Today we're going to talk about felting the chicken. If you remember last episode, I said this chicken was on my needles, and I have since gotten this chicken all knitted, felted, and I'm actually pretty pleased with this chicken. And I may felt all the chickens in the future because I really like the surface. I like the tension that you get with the felting. I'm going to tell you my step-by-step. It was going to be a success or failure, and you were going to see the results. And I'm actually quite relieved to sit here and tell you that it was a success. But it was a process getting to the success. So once I got the knitting all done, and before I put the little comb on and the beak, these two items here are not felted. I actually went online and Googled and read up a little bit about hand felting. I knew you could put it in a washing machine, but I had been told that only a top loader worked. Well, I don't have a top loader, mine's a front loader, so I didn't even think about going ahead and doing it with the washing machine. So I got the hot water in my kitchen sink. You'll be seeing some still shots of the process. I put the kitchen soap in the water. The reason why one wants soap, especially with lamb's wool, is there's a lot of lanolin in that wool, unless it's superwash wool, and superwash wool will not felt. But this was not superwash and has quite a fiber to it, and so it needed the soap to help break down whatever lanolin was left in the wool. And it also, they say the sudsing helps those fibers begin to combine together. Well, I sloshed it, literally. Even had my grandma's old potato masher, thinking that might be good to work it in the hot water. I had rubber gloves on, as they say is a good thing to do, because the rubber gloves actually had a little texture to the palms, so that helped. I was rough with this wool. And I did that probably for about 20 minutes. And I would take it out and look at it, and I could tell that it was starting to felt. You could see there was some of the fiber was lifting and getting kind of all meshed together. None of it came off in the water. It was just interlocking together a bit. And but I knew it had a long ways to go. Even after 20 minutes, it had a long ways to go before it was going to be to what I had envisioned in my mind. And so as I was contemplating what to do next, I remembered that I had made a throw, just a lap throw. I don't even know the dimensions, but it was pretty good sized, several years ago. And it had accidentally got put in the washing machine with some towels. And it not only went through the washing machine, but it actually went through the dryer also. And I have it over here. And this, which is now maybe 2.5 feet by a foot and a half, very thick. It's almost an inch in thickness. And this now has become a throw that I put in the seat of a big chair that our little shedding dog, his name's Rusty. I'll actually post a picture of Rusty. Rusty likes to get up in this one chair and lay. Well, Rusty sheds. And so I needed something in that chair. Well, this wonderful felted throw, which is now super thick, and I have to say has some rusty hair embedded in it, is what I put on that chair. And I actually like the look of the felting. And so I had forgotten all about this. Well, all of this happened in my front loader washing machine. Now this is actually baby alpaca. It's not wool. It's not stickery. When you feel this wool in making a garment, it actually is so soft that, that if you were to make a heavy sweater with it, it would actually sag. It would just have a drape, I should say, to it. And so it doesn't have to be a stickery wool in order to felt. This alpaca, well, of course, if we look at the people up in the Andes in Peru, they have a lot of felted outerwear, and it's alpaca. Might not be baby alpaca, they probably sell that, but the longer fibers, it's what they're felting with, and this felted up well. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to take my little hen and I'm going to throw her in the washing machine. And I did. I put a couple of towels in with it and put a little bit of my laundry soap, and then she went through the dryer. And when she came out, I think she came out well. I'm going to hold this up really close, and if you look really hard, you can see a little bit of the stitching, but not much. I could have felted her some more, but she felt really good to me the way she is. So I thought, I'm gonna go with that. So the nice thing about it is when I started stuffing her, I knew right away she handled much different than a knit that wasn't felted. A knit that's not felted will actually keep stuffing and you can stretch the stitches out. Well, at this level of felting, I couldn't. It actually gave me a better structure to stuff with. And so she's holding her shape, I might say, quite icely. So I'm very, very pleased with the end results, with how she turned out. And when I got most of the stuffing in, I started sewing her up on the bottom. You can see that stitching along there. I probably sewed her up, maybe about to this point here on both sides. Left a little opening, continued to stuff and pack it in pretty tight, and then at the very end finished the bottom seam. Now this chicken, original design, is made by Ella Austin. She calls it Fancy Hen. This is her pattern right here. Got it off of Ravelry, which is a big site for knitters and crocheters. And if you've never gone on and investigated it's not a her, the Ravelry site, if you've never investigated Ravelry, do. There's so many free patterns, and there are knitters on there from all over the world. There are thousands and thousands of people use Ravelry, a great resource. And so that's where I got this pattern. I did pay for it, and Ella Austin. Well, she made the original pattern. I have modified. I just want to tell you some of my modifications. Not to be afraid. I think I said the other day that I had heard that a pattern is a suggestion, and we don't have to follow it exactly. I like putting my own little twist. I make my comb up here quite different than what she does. I also proportion out the amount of stitches for the head and the body here and the tail differently. I do increases a little differently than what she does. She does increasing along here and throughout the back here. And I also add some in here because I wanted her to have a little more rounded figure. And so I think this little hen has is a little more curvaceous, let's say. So maybe someday I'll write all my changes down and share them if anybody's ever interested, although her pattern's very good. I just, after making a few according to the pattern, I decided that I wanted to make some changes. So that's my little fancy hen. And I will give her the credit for it, though, obviously, because it was her pattern, and I think that's just appropriate to do. And I would like to remind those of you that have started posting, I think that's terrific. And I hope a lot more people come on the site and post. Even if your project is not done, tell us about it, what process you're in with it. It doesn't have to be knitting or crochet. There might be all kinds of other things that you do. I would love to see them, and I know other people would too. So I hope that you will be brave and begin to post, and let us see what you're doing. That would be fun. I do want to talk a little bit more about the alpaca and that strange happening in the washing machine. I could probably wash this again a few more times, and it might even get smaller and thicker. But this works quite well for the chair, and I will actually post some pictures of the chair with this on it so you can see how I use it. And our little Rusty dog seems to love it, and his hairs that are embedded in this probably will be there forever. But felting is fun. There's a number of different things that can be felted, and now that I've done the chicken, it makes me think of other things that maybe I would do. I'm going to show you a pillow. Here's a pillow that I made, and it's out of the same wool. I did this one. I actually even did these little buttons. Aren't they kind of fun? Each one's different. And maybe one day I'll do a little tutorial on those. This is the back side. Lots of Fair Isle in this. This is also Fair Isle. Remember, Fair Isle means that there's no more than 2 colors on any given row. So while you look at this and you might say, oh my goodness, but if you break it down to the row and you only have 2 colors on each row, you can maybe imagine how simplified it actually becomes. So I did the front as one piece and the back, whichever one you want to call front and back. This design here, I actually made myself. I have a program on my computer that is for knitters and crocheters and I guess people that do needlepoint. And you can make your own design. You can tell it what your stitch gauge is. You can say how many stitches to an inch that you have, and you can create your whole scene. It's quite an impressive piece of software. I'll post the name of that if anybody's interested in making their own designs. It's great. You can use it for a lot of things. But this pillow is not felted. I'll get close and you can see the stitches far more distinct. So this pillow is much, much softer than my hen because it's not felted. If I would put a lot more stuffing in here, it would begin to stretch the stitches out, and you could just make it would have no stability. It has very little stability. And there is a pillow inside a pillow here. So there's really, I stuffed what would be a sewn up pillowcase or an inside frame. I made it myself, a form, I mean. And, but that still is not enough. This softer knitting without being felted just gives a lot more. Feels nice. It would be great to have on a couch. But if you want something that is a little more stable, the felting is the way to go. And this particular piece, I could have felted it before I sewed it up. And maybe I'll do that in the future. Not with this one, but with some other pillows that I might make. This is just sewn up all the way around the edge, is all sewn up by hand. Laid the two pieces insides together. So the inside was on the outside, sewed it up. And because these buttons are here, this is where I can stuff the pillow in and put the casing over the outside edge. When I sewed this hen up, the bottom, as I was saying, is a seam. But what I did with the top edge from here to here, that's just straight, I did what's called a 3-needle cast off. And I'm going to hold this very close. And you can hardly tell where it comes together. And in a 3-needle cast off, it almost becomes a hidden seam. Even when I look at it this way, I can hardly see that seam. Well, that's very different than how the original designer put her pillow together. And I think this is a nifty little trick to do with a 3-needle bind off. I could have done that down here, but far more tricky to pick up all these little stitches. It could be done, but a little more tricky. Up here, the stitches were already on. There was a needle on this side and a needle on this side. So very easy to do a 3-needle bind off. If you're not a knitter, that's not going to make any sense to you. But for those of you that knit, that's just a little guideline. I don't know if the crocheting world has some duplication of something that would be a stitch that would maybe be about the same. If you know they do, post for me and let me know. But anyhow, that's our episode for today. You'll see some still shots that kind of will show you the process of felting. And I think I like the idea of felting, and I might be doing more, especially since I work so much with wool. And hope you enjoyed. Maybe you learned something that you'd never thought about before, or maybe never wanted to think about. So I hope you enjoyed it though. Please share our site with friends, invite them to join us. I've now gone over to YouTube simply because recording with YouTube or through YouTube and then bringing it back over to Facebook is a much easier process and gives me a few more possibilities. So you can find me on YouTube also. Maybe a little hard with only 2 episodes. This will be the 3rd one, but I went over there because it just was going to make it easier for me. But if you do view this through YouTube, please do a like, well, if you like it, and a share. That would be really terrific, and invite your friends. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time. Bye now.